All right, on this video, we are going to be looking at amplitude, but before we calculate amplitude, we're going to work with the midline. And after we do that, we are going to apply it to a sine and a cosine equation that's already kind of set up for us. All right, so first thing we need to do is find the midline of the yellow graph. And when we do that, the first thing I like to do is I like to find the minimum and the maximum. You'll notice that that is 7 and 17. And from there, I am simply going to add them and divide by 2. So 7 plus 17 divided by 2, which is going to be 24 divided by 2, which is 12. Now, I'm going to verify that by just simply saying, okay, let's plug it in, y equals 12, and you'll notice that the midline does show up. Now, when we find the amplitude is going to be the distance from the midline to the top or the midline to the bottom. So the midline to the max or the midline to the min. But when we look at it graphically, we want to be really careful about our scaling. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to look directly at it. I'm going to zoom in and we should be able to see it nice and easy. And I'm going to count it. Notice that the scale is going by 2s. So the amplitude is simply going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the amplitude is equal to 5. Now, it would be the same if you were to go count down. Now, we can also do max minus the min divided by 2. So that is just 17 minus 7 divided by 2, and that will equal to a total of 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Now, the question is, well, where does that go in the equation? So the first thing I want to point out is this is a cosine equation. Okay, so this is cosine. And the reason why I know that is that here's the midline. This is the y-axis, okay, y-axis. And when it is on the y-axis, it is at the top. It is a max or a min on the y-axis. So that's what's happening. So this is a cosine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. Let's find out where those pieces are going to get applied on our graph. Okay, so let me put that back in place. There we go. So let's come down here. I'm going to find my cosine. Right now, it does not matter what happens in this x value attached to that x value. We're not looking at that. In a previous video, we learned that the midline goes out here, and that is going to be cosine of x. And then we've got plus 12, and you'll notice that that cosine graph does show up. Now, the amplitude's relationship is that it is out in the front. It is the vertical stretch of the function. So I'm going to put that 5 right out here. And notice that it does stretch onto that graph. All right, so let's go ahead and do one more. We'll come down to the other graph, this purple one, and we will work with that one. So the first thing we do again is find the minimum and the maximum. So negative 11 plus 1, so negative, and we find the average of them. So negative 11 plus 1 all over 2, which is going to be negative 10 divided by 2, which is okay, so our midline should be negative 5. Let's go ahead and check it out. It does show up. And like I said, you can eyeball a lot of this in this Desmos activity. Okay, so you'll notice that negative 5 shows up. We are going to count the amplitude now. And I'm going to do that from a different location. Let's go ahead and do that from a maximum to the minimum standpoint, okay? And so notice that the scaling is still 2, so I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? So that the midline, okay, the amplitude should be a total of 6. So amplitude equals to 6. Now let's verify that. So the amplitude is the same thing as the max minus the min divided by 2. So the max is 1 minus negative 11, the minimum, all over 2. 2 negatives make a positive, so that gives us 12 over 2, which is 6. So we've done it graphically as well as algebraically. And we know the midline is -5, and we know the amplitude is 6. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the graph that we currently have, which is not cosine anymore. It is going to be sine. Okay, so there we go. So let's take off the cosine. Let's go to sine, and you'll notice sine shows up. Okay, and where does it? We know that midline is the last number in the equation, -5. You'll notice it moves down. And let's go ahead and put that amplitude up in the front, 6. The number in the x does not affect the midline, and it does not affect the amplitude. So the amplitude is in front of the function sine, the parent function sine, and the -5 is the midline is going to be on the outside.